Hello, my friends.
This is the Unapologetic Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome to
a podcast for passionate entrepreneurs just like yourself
that you're
who are
here.
looking to
I know
create
you
a
have
profitable
so
and
many
productive
options
business
with what
that
you're doing
you
in your
are
day,
proud of.
how many
On this
podcasts
show,
you're
we
listening
explore
to, and so I am
entrepreneurship,
honored
success
that
stories,
you are
but not
listening
just
to
the
this
highlights.
episode.
We get into the
and taking
nitty-gritty
me and my
details
guest
so
along
that
with
you know
for
more
the
about the
day.
path traveled
So
to achieve
I've got
that success.
a very special
See,
guest
I'm on
for
a
you
mission
today,
to
and
help
I'm
you
so
never
excited.
feel like
She
a
was one of
failure
those
again
people
when it comes to
when I
achieving
got
your
the
goals.
podcast
And
pitch,
so much of that
it
is
was
setting
like
realistic
it just
expectations of the
felt
effort
aligned.
needed.
And so I knew I
Goals
had
that
to
align
figure
with
out
the
how to get
season
her
of
on
your
the
life
podcast, and
and
I'm super
ensuring that
excited
you
that
have the
she's
accountability
here.
in
And I'm
place
going to
that
let
you
her
need.
introduce
So
herself.
on this
but I do
podcast,
wanna
you
give
can
her a few
expect
shout-outs.
real
She is
conversations,
also a
practical
podcast
tips, and
host, so
lots
you
of
want to make sure
encouragement
to
along
listen
the
to her
way
podcast,
so that you have
and
everything
she
you
works
need
with
to
female
follow through and
entrepreneurs
actually
as
achieve
well.
your
So
definition
we
of
are going to
success.
dive in and
So
talk
if you're
about
ready
a
to
lot
go
of
from
things
unsure
today.
to
But
unapologetic,
Amira,
be sure
thank
to
you
hit
so
that
much
subscribe
for being
button
here
so you
today.
never
Will you
miss an
please
episode.
introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
I'm so happy to be here, Amanda. This is going to be a great conversation. I know that already. And let's see, introductions. I am someone who has done this path of entrepreneurship and really, year over year, built a bigger and bigger business one step at a time and then by quantum leaps. Now, I think it will be a great conversation to have around what that means to make a quantum leap, because on the one hand, there were some big shifts that needed to be made internally. It was backed up with something that I know you're going to like is your lane, which is like steady, consistent action. And I think the two things together are really amazing. So I am someone who's built a multiple 7-figure business. I'm a mentor, trusted advisor, coach to entrepreneurial women who have built businesses already and are looking for more spaciousness, more ease, more meaning. They're asking the question, is this all there is? What comes next now that I've gotten to a certain level of achievement? And I help them really craft what I call an exquisite life. And I do that through using my own experience, which I cannot wait to share with your audience, and some lens on life that I think are pretty unique around sort of the laws of the universe and energy management and the power of manifestation and action and how to integrate those two things and what it means to have belief in yourself and all of that. So I can't wait. Let's go.
Yeah, me too. My gosh, I'm so excited. And there's so much that we get to dig into and it's going to be so fun. And I'll be sure to link to your podcast as well, because there's so much more that you talk about on your podcast related to these things. But what I'm just really excited about, and I hope everyone just kind of caught on to that, was that idea of number one, I want to dive into the quantum leaps for sure. But that idea of someone getting to a point and saying, is there more? Oftentimes, I have heard this when someone is in corporate and they're running up against that feeling of, gosh, I think that there's something more. I want to start my own business. You're the first person that I've heard talk about it once the person has started their own business and gets to that point again. That's a really interesting point, probably because I interview so many people who talk about the beginning stages, and so they're not there yet. But that's a really interesting idea of like, no matter what career you have, you can get to that point of, oh my gosh, is there more? Or just like that feeling of almost like stuckness or wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important to pull back the curtains on this, if you will, so have a little visibility on this. So I will use my story as an example, and there might be people out there who are further along in their business and are hearing this and resonating with it, or as you are building your business and you remember this conversation in the future, it might like help you, which is I'd built a multi 7-figure business. I was doing all the things I thought, and let me can I go back a little bit further?
Yeah, because I want to say, like, there's so many people listening to this that don't think that's possible for them.
Oh, yeah.
That multi 7-figure business. And I don't know if you ever ran into that along the way, but that's where a lot of my audience is of, she just said something that is not even remotely possible to me.
Yeah. And that was not in my vision when I first started my business at all. So I started my business, and probably the first year was probably a 6-month year or a 9-month year. It wasn't a full year. And I made $30K. I was like, oh, I'm making some money.
Right.
Fantastic. Great. And then the second year in business, I tripled that. I got to 90K.
That's
huge.
I
love talking. It's huge. I love talking about the numbers because one, I feel like people hide things. And if you're transparent, it's just so much easier. It's like, oh yeah, this is what it looked like. This is what happened for me. This is what I did. You can do it too, right? It's possible. So and I was working my patootie off without a doubt.
Right.
Okay. And the third year in business, I made 138K, which I was super proud of myself. I crossed that sort of mythical 6-figure mark. I was like, hallelujah, I've arrived. Okay. And yet there was this one moment. I was married at the time. We had a 2-story house. My then husband, really great guy, was like, hey babe, dinner's ready. And I called downstairs. It was a non-client facing day. I was sitting remember distinctly, I was sitting on the floor of my office, leaning up against this old couch that I had. No one ever saw the couch. It was kind of a little threadbare and beaten, with my laptop on my lap, actually using it as a laptop. I was still in the pajamas that I had slept in. It was like a old t-shirt and sweats, and I hadn't taken a shower and I hadn't brushed my teeth. It was, I had just woken up in the morning and started working and had gone nonstop. And now it was like 6 p.m. at night and it was time for dinner. I was like, hey babe, I'll be right down. I just want to finish one thing. You know that feeling, right? The gasp.
And my husband who's listening to this is like, oh yeah, I've heard her say it.
Yeah. And so like an hour later, he's like, hey babe, I'm starting. Didn't guilt me, didn't shame me. Great guy. But I stopped. I paused. I was like, this is not sustainable. Yeah. Like, this is not what Beyonce does. This is not what Oprah does.
No.
This is not what Sarah Blakely does. How did they create success? Because I'm using the one freaking tool that I had, which was work ethic, right? I knew I had willpower. Yeah, I might have been doing the wrong things, but at least I was busy. Okay.
Right.
And it was like sheer effort. And I think that was one of the biggest things that shifted. And I know this will land for you, Amanda, was like when I studied what successful people did and I really learned from already successful people, I realized that there was a different way of acting and behaving and doing in this world. And I was a little worker bee. I was behaving like I was in school and I wanted to get an A on the test. And to do that, you have to dot the I's and cross the T's and do all those things. I wasn't behaving like the C student who was like, what's the most important thing to do right now so that I can pass and keep going? Okay. And that was a revolutionary shift for me.
I feel like I'm having it right now. Like in this moment, I'm having your couch moment. I'm having right now.
Yeah. Because it was so hard. This was a belief shift for me because I was brought up like that was excellence.
Yes.
And I was like, how could I don't want to be not excellent.
Right.
And so, I worked with mentors and I studied the laws of the universe, which really helped me like change my perspective. And I went that 4th year, I really did things differently. And I didn't do shoddy work. I just need everyone to know that. Okay. I went from making 138 the year before to 700K.
Oh my gosh.
And, yeah.
I mean, talk about a quantum leap.
Totally. It was a 5 times, exponential income growth, right? And one of the, now here's the thing, Amanda.
I just want you to tell me everything.
7-figure. Yeah. We were talking about 7 figures.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a goal of 7 figures initially. I had a goal of getting to 6 figures.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. That was my goal. And I got there through sheer hard work.
Right.
And then it was like, what's my next goal? And what most people do, and this is really controversial. So if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yep.
I'm all good with that. Most people go, okay, I made 138 last year. Let me go to 250.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then they'll get to like 197 or 210 or something like that. They might not get to 250. Inevitably, we set goals and they feel like reaches to us, but we don't get there.
Right.
So what I did that year was I set a goal of $1 million, which seemed crazy.
I know. It's so, and in that moment, now is like where I want to dig in a little bit with that, because like that was so brave of you. And I think we can all set things like, and for the person, dear person listening, who's like, I just want to get to 6 figures. Like, we know that feeling. For some reason, that magical, like you said, 6 figures is a weird number that we all are like, I've got to do it. And nothing changes when you hit it, by the way. It's like, I mean, there's a moment, but it's not like your life has changed in any way, because it's not like you're taking home that money. Like you're running a business at the same time. And so to go from 6 to 7 and that idea, we can say those words, but how did you get yourself to believe that it was possible?
Yeah. So I had, I was in a seminar, and the person who was teaching the seminar said, it's easier to make more money than to make less money. And I was like,
you're like, what is that? Huh? What?
I now know the answer. So you can ask me about that. Okay. Like, what does that mean? How is that true?
Right.
But like, it was like my brain had to like figure it out through a lived experience of it. And, he was like, you can make your monthly income, you can make your annual income your monthly income. And I did a little bit of like,
right.
And I was like, oh, that would mean making this. And then I was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it.
Amen.
And that was the belief that I held on to. And I know that's crazy. But it hooked me emotionally. This is a big thing. So your listeners will either be like, la, 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 la,
right.
doesn't land. Totally fine. Okay.
Right.
And then there's going to be a few people in the audience that are like, I want that. If what? You can do that? That's crazy. Really? You can do that? And they will have the same emotional hook that I had. Because I had a very visceral, emotional hook to, well, if someone else can do this, I can do this. Like there's nothing.
Right.
I felt broken, but it was like intellectually, there was nothing truly. I was like, if they can do it, I can do this. I have, what do I have going for me? I have perseverance, willpower, all of that, work ethic. I have intelligence, right? Like I didn't have a sense of like being dumb, right? And I knew that I was a good student. I could learn. Just tell me what I need to learn. Tell me what I need to do differently.
Right.
So then I realized that part of, and this is like I'm giving away the keys to the kingdom here. Listen up.
I'm here. And if no one else is listening, I'm listening.
Okay. I had to believe it was possible.
Right.
Okay. And there were dark nights of the soul. There were dark days of the soul. Like it was not for the faint of heart. And what most people do is when everything looks like it's falling apart, they stop. They quit. They stop believing. And I remember like walking with my dog, trying to get like the rhythm going and clear my head and everything. And thinking, I just need to make 10K. I just need to make 10K right now, right? Like I could just make 10K, right? That would be amazing. Like, right?
Yep.
And I would have these moments. And then there would be these other moments where I would have these breakthroughs. And I would, obviously there would be big breakthroughs because I made 700K that year, But the thing is, Amanda, that still happens for me. I just now know the tools, right? I run a multi-7-figure business. I keep saying that, but just as a reference point.
Right. People need to hear it. I'm here for it. And I say, bring it on. Talk about all the money stuff. Because and like you and I have talked about, and you talk about this a lot as well, is specifically with females. I'm not saying only females deal with this. Certainly not. I don't want to put people into a bucket here. But a lot of us have dealt with a lot of money stories that are not necessarily true. And the money conversation has to happen. And so you can say 7 figures as many times as you need to get to say it because it is possible. Like you said, for anyone listening to this, it is possible. It is not going to be easy, but it is possible.
Yes. And and you will be faced with circumstances, your life around you that is showing you that you don't have that. It could be the 6 figures, it could be the 7 figures, it could be whatever you're going for, that you don't have that. And I still have that experience, right? I'm like, look, my reality is showing me this. This is what the circumstances are. And I will go down a rabbit hole for more time than I want to admit, right? Because I should know better by now. But then but it's shorter than how it used to be. Okay. And then I go back to, no, if the desire is felt, the supply is ready to appear. So I just need to stay in my true desire with my belief and let that inspire my action and then take the action. And I know you're all about taking the action.
I mean, you can see my face, you know it's happening, and I'm going to say it for everyone. And you actually said it in the very beginning. And you said something that I was like, ooh, that is the nugget I'm going to be pulling out, which is the manifestation plus the action. And I think a lot of people, and I work with a lot of people in the wellness industry who have the spiritual beliefs, no matter what those are. And so this idea of manifesting something, praying for something, hoping for something, I am here for all of that. But you can't only do that. Like hope is not a strategy and we have to take action. And that, I mean, like you said, some people resonate with what you say and some people resonate with that and some people it really pisses them off. And so I know that that's not the perfect person for me, but I do think that there has to be both of these things.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think where people get in the way is the nuance of it, the discernment of it. Like, when are they all in the action and thus stopping the flow and constricting the opportunities and the new ways of things coming through and in? And when are they just in this, like, whatever happens, I'm not taking responsibility for my life, which is actually contradictory to the laws of the universe. You have to be responsible for your life, right? Here's the rub. I mean, here's the spiritual perspective on this. The universe, life, God, source, whatever you want to call it, infinite intelligence, is an organizing principle. Okay? It is ordered. You send a directive out to it, a desire, and it will order things for you. But if you are not aligned with the order of the universe by being the person who is ready to receive what you're asking for, you're out of alignment. You're out of order. Okay, point 1. Point 2 is, and I can break this down further if you have questions.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, I'm getting a 101 version of this because I feel like everything has kind of been leading me to this conversation of like, because I am so much on the action side. Like when you said so much on the action that you're not open to the possibilities or the opportunities. I like to think that I am, but I'm like, maybe I'm not because I will do the thing because that's part of my personality. And I need a little bit more of the let it come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, let it happen. So that's a little bit of the masculine, feminine energies, and we can talk about that. But let me make this second point because I think it's really important. And this, if you can track, if you can go with me here, follow along, okay? The universe is not separate from you. It's not this being, this entity, this energy, this life force that is doing something for you, to you, that you're separate from. The truth is we're all made up of this energy. You are this energy, which means you create your outcomes as well. Okay? So you have to be in alignment. You have to be at the vibration of the outcomes that you desire. That's the law of vibration, which is the law of attraction, the subsidiary law to the law of vibration. And that means that to get at that vibration, you actually have to be that person, which means you have to think, feel, and do like that person.
Think, feel, and do. That's good.
Right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to sit here and stay who I am right now, and the universe is going to deliver something new to me. It doesn't happen that way. You're going to keep getting the same results you've always gotten. When I made that big quantum leap, every time I've made a big quantum leap, I've had to become someone different. Not like you lose your essence of who you are, but you have to let go of the old beliefs, self-doubt, lack of faith, negative thinking, complaining, being a victim, whatever it is, right? You have to let go of that to let something better in. Okay.
Oh, that's good. I'm going to hold on to that. Think, feel, and do, because that is so important. You need all of them. You can't just think it, can't just believe it, and you really can't just do it, as much as I'd like to think that you can. Yeah. You can't do that.
Because I was a doer. I am still a doer, right?
Sounds like it,
But like that year where it was like I made 138, I was doing. There was not a lack of do, okay?
Right.
But there was a lack of understanding that I needed to have a bigger goal, bigger vision, bigger desire. And in order to do that, I had to start thinking, feeling, and acting at a different level. Okay. It wasn't I stopped acting.
Right. Yeah.
But I did have to stop acting from a place of scarcity, which is that like fear-driven action, you know? And that's, again, Amanda, that's so challenging because what is fear-driven action and what is fear because you're doing new action and it's different than you've done before? Right?
I think a lot of people struggle with that. At least the people I work with, I'll ask them like, are you nervous to take this action because you've never done it before and you're not sure what's going to happen? Maybe you're afraid of failing or whatever. Or are you scared because like it's something you don't want to do in your life and I'm trying to push you to do it or something? Like we have to identify like which is it? Because that fear of pushing ourselves out of the comfort zone, we have to do if we're trying to make especially a quantum leap.
Totally. But then there's just nervous doing, right? I'm scared and I'm just going to fill my day with stuff.
Gosh, I am so guilty of that. I'm getting better. I'm definitely getting better with that as an entrepreneur because I caught it pretty early because I was a workaholic in the corporate world. And so I really had to balance that. But I'm not great at catching it all the time because I enjoy what I do. And so I slip into I just like doing it. And so I'll just put things on my calendar to do them.
Yeah.
Which is silly.
I get it.
Hi there. I promised to get you back into the episode really soon, but I wanted to make sure you knew where to find support from me if you'd like it. So many times we listen to a podcast episode and we know that it's a great idea, but ideas aren't what make big change happen in our life or in our business. Action does. So if you've been talking about a specific project, dream, or goal for a while and haven't quite finished it yet, it's time to either intentionally let that go or get the support you need to finally finish it. And if I feel like a good fit for you, I'd love to take it across the finish line with you. Go to my website to see the current coaching options at amandamckinney.com or email me at amanda@amandamckinney.com. I cannot wait to talk to you, but for now, let's get back into the episode.
So let's go back to that masculine, feminine energy stuff that I made a little nod to. So if you're all in not all, but primarily in the do, get the stuff done, you love the structure, you love the discipline, that is a very strong masculine. So, you know, you and I are both women and you and I have strong masculines.
Yeah.
Okay. The masculine is the structure, the discipline, it's the container, okay? It's the drive to go out and hunt, get the thing, come back, right? Like it's very directive, okay? The feminine energy, and all humans have both, okay? In fact, the masculine and feminine, when they come together in physical form, is how you make babies, right? The sperm and the egg have to come together, and without one, you can't make babies.
Right.
This is how life is created. Okay, so we all have these energies inside of us, and when they come together, they create in this world. This is how we create outcomes. Okay, ideas are created this way, but to get it into form, you need both.
Right.
Okay. So the feminine energy is more about the flow, the movement. It's more receptive. Okay. Think about, not to get too graphic here, but the anatomy of the male and the female. One is pointing
Gotcha.
outwards, one is receiving, right?
Mm-hmm.
The feminine energy is a receptive energy. We receive ideas, we receive support, we receive nourishment in this world, okay? And we give nourishment, okay? So there's, if you're building a team, for instance, and you don't have a strong feminine, you're going to think that you have to do everything yourself and you have to direct at a high level and you can't receive the support. Okay.
Right.
So, if you, I would just, for exploration purposes later, I would look at if I'm filling all my time with doing stuff, you love it. You wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. But I would also ask yourself, what else do I want to receive? Okay.
It's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes, like if you want to receive more money, let's just say,
right.
Okay. But we could be talking about, like, I work with a lot of women on relationships, receiving love, right? Feeling supported in this world, not alone at the top, that kind of thing. Whatever you want to receive, like you have to be able to open yourself to a new way for that to flow in. Okay.
That's a really interesting way. Like I'm sitting here just taking it all in because I feel like just like the people listening, most likely, I'm hearing it. I've heard these words, but you're explaining it in a way that's really, it's easy to comprehend. So thank you for breaking it down in such a way. And it's like, okay, when you said, if you want to receive more money, everyone listening to this podcast, including myself, is in that bucket. Whether you want to admit it or not, that's where you are. We want more money for whatever the reason is. We can do amazing things with money. Money is neutral. So if you want to receive more money, a lot of the times when I think about, I want to make more money in my business, I think, okay, how can I do that? And I think strategy first versus, okay, why do I want to make that? Am I open to receiving it? And am I open to changes along the way versus forcing something in the way that Amanda thinks it's going to work?
Yeah. Right. And so that would be where I would ask you, like, what if we took a different, like, we don't throw out the strategy because the strategy is so important. Okay.
Right.
Like, I want everyone to hear, I'm not saying
right.
like no strategy or no tactical, like this is how I do my business kind of stuff. But what if you just put a little pin in it and you said, I'm going to come back to you. And you started with more of a vision of like, okay, well, how much do I want to make? Let's say it's $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Like, what would my life be like if I had that? Right.
Right.
And then there would be stuff that would pop in. Okay. Ideas, feelings. It's like spaciousness, ease.
Yeah.
I would feel calm. I would feel secure. I would feel like I made it. Right. Like, what are you would come up with different qualities and then you would start seeing yourself. Oh, well, maybe I would take Fridays off, or maybe I would only work from 10 to 4 during the day, or maybe I would have a second in command who could do these kinds of, and you would start, it would call in different ideas of how your life/business would look. And then you go, okay, that's feeling really good. I like that. That feels good. I'm trying it on in my imagination. It feels good. And then you build the strategy for that.
So how do you want to feel? How does it feel? How would it feel? That sort of thing. And
what
then
would it look like?
Yeah.
What would I experience comes first. Yeah.
And then building the strategy of how to get there and being open to changes. Because we all know plans are great, but they never go according to plan.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. I didn't do that when I said I wanted to make 7 figures.
Oh.
So
okay.
I made 7 figures. And I mean, I did it a little bit. Let me just say I didn't skip it entirely, but it was just, I really, the feeling that I had was I made it. Okay.
Okay.
And I was doing it because I never wanted to look at Amazon again and try and figure out if I could afford something and go, like, I didn't want to do that thing. Should I pay the $18 thing or the $24 thing? Right? How many
thank
hours
you for
have
that
you freaking
specific? Because we've all done that. Like, I know I have.
It's crazy, right? It's like
Yeah.
you waste all this time just buy the $24 thing. But like in my mind, I was like,
Yes.
I need to figure out
save
the
those
bet
dollars.
Yeah. So it was inane, but and yet it's what we all do. So don't take that personally if you're doing that.
Sure.
I
and
get
everyone has their own thing of like, yours was like, I want to not think twice about buying the $24 thing versus the $18 thing. For someone else, it's like, I want to buy brand name peanut butter instead of the generic peanut butter and not think about it, or whatever the thing is. Like, we all have our thing, but I love
want to go into Whole Foods and just buy what I want and not think about it.
Right.
And I had to move through that. Just I had to live that experience again and again. I had to go into Neiman Marcus for one. That was terrifying in the beginning, right? I was like, they're all going to judge me and they like, I'm not good enough and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's the pretty woman moment of like, totally. I can't buy this stuff.
But I had to take myself on that journey myself and then get to the place where I just try on clothes without looking at the price tag and decide if I like it versus, because, I used to go to the shelf, look at it, flip the price tag over. If it was outside of my price point, I didn't even decide that I liked it or not. It was, so I really, it felt like I was doing it just because of the money. I wanted to say that I had arrived and feel like I could buy what I wanted to buy. So what I got was that, but I was still working that crazy, unsustainable way, right? In the beginning.
Right.
And so it's really important to like decide, okay, I want this with this feeling, with this flow, with this spaciousness. And I know so many, I have many, many colleagues who get to the 7 figures and they're still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They don't have that feeling of spaciousness and they don't have that feeling of ease. Like they don't have that feeling of what they love their business. It's not a lack of love. Sometimes they get to a place of burnout, or sometimes they get to a place of like, this is no longer fun, for sure. And I got there, right? I got to the place where, I realized I liked smaller groups, more intimacy, more one-on-one, and I was building something that was meant for 80 or 100 people, and that wasn't what lit me up. And so I had to do a real remap of it. And I think it's important to be honest about, what actually works for you. Okay, now we've gotten completely
I love this. This is a great conversation. And what you're talking about is just so inspiring. And what I'm hearing is it's, again, this mix of thinking, feeling, and doing. Like that is coming through wholeheartedly through all of this. And that feeling, and I would say like, you're saying like, I reached the 7 figures, but it wasn't like I got there and I was like, oh, I was still doing too much. And I really didn't, I should be doing this other thing. And part of me wants to and this is part of my personality, is like, you did great. You did did awesome with the resources and the information that you had. And we change in time. And so when you got there, you realized, I achieved that thing, but now I want something a little more easeful. And so you change. And I think everyone needs to hear that too, because a lot of people feel like, especially when they listen to me, because a lot of people are more on the visionary side and they come to me because they want the strategy side. They need the kick in the pants a little bit of, you can do this, you got to stay focused. Totally. And that's what really works.
And by the way, that is the masculine and feminine together. When you have like I will teach people how to do sales, or I'll teach people, and it's like, here's your spreadsheet, here's your metrics, like, let's go, like, stay focused, right? Yeah. And when you can bring those two together, that's where you create. If you're all in the masculine and the numbers and the data and all of that, you're just constrained. And if you're all in the visionary, you're just like in the clouds. Right. You need the coming together of those two.
It's so great. It's so great.
Can I share one more?
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely. Oh, the only thing I was going to say is a lot of people that are more on the visionary side, more on that feminine side, when they come to me, they really feel constrained when I say, pick one thing to work on for a little bit. And I always like to say, it doesn't mean it's forever. But in order to make progress, we got to focus on something. We got to focus that energy, not to work all the time, but instead in that intentional action. And so I hope everyone is hearing that of like, you can work on something and maybe you want to feel something now, but it changes later. And that's okay. Like the change is okay. And I think that's the thing that like throws people off when it's like, choose a goal, stay focused. And it's like, but it's okay to change.
Yeah. It's totally great to change. In fact, you have to change. If you don't change, like you get stuck.
Super stuck.
And plateau. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to share was that in order to think, feel, and do differently, you have to release old beliefs. Now, so many people talk about limiting beliefs. This is not a new concept. But the way I look at it is that there are these core wounds that we have. And we all had some version of them. And if we can identify your core wound and transform it, release it, unpack it, you will then be free to not just intellectually think differently, but it will be a visceral, embodied thinking differently. You're actually being someone different. And I really had to do a ton of core wound work when I was changing my money story, when I was really building my business. I still look at this stuff. Like I still go back and see what those wounds are. Recently, we were talking before we hit record and about me moving to California to be with my honey. And I quote unquote manifested the man of my dreams.
I love it.
Right? Which is great. That was my goal. Right? And yet in order to do that, I had to release my core wound of being unlovable. And now this is, and if people are, by the way, if people are interested in this, you had mentioned my podcast.
Yes.
So I have a podcast. It's called the Unstoppable Woman Podcast.
Such a fabulous name. Such a fabulous name.
Thank you. And on the homepage of our website, there's a link to a private podcast. So you could go and get that as well. And that's all on core wounds and loyalty pack. So if this is,
I'll make sure to link that.
Yeah, that's a good resource for people. But I had to let go of this core wound of unlovability. And that was really challenging because in some ways, that wound was what was motivating me to be successful in my business. This happens for a lot of successful women. That wound is what unconsciously, subconsciously is driving their work ethic, their behavior, their ability to really work at a much higher level, and get the kind of accomplishments done, success, achievements. And they think, if I let go of this, if I want a bigger life, I want a different life, I want the spaciousness, I want the love, I want the support, I want all of that. But who am I without this part of me that drives me, that motivates me? Will I be completely lacking in motivation? Will I be a slug on the couch, just staring at the ceiling? And the answer is maybe, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's you could go down that path, but the way I've done it has not created that. And there's a methodology for creating your next level exquisite life, and without that fear-driven, core wound-driven motivation.
That's great. I love that. And I'm sure it would be on the other side as well of like, there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that are excited to start a business or have this dream. Maybe they've not even told anyone about the dream that they have, or they call it their little business, and it's this thing that it's just on the side and I just do this and it's that idea. And I bet I am certainly not a psychologist or therapist in any way, shape, or form, and I always like to give that caveat. But I would assume that there's probably some stories around being taken care of. And there's a lot of females that I've worked with that are pretty nervous about making more money than their partner. And that causes quite a few roadblocks. And again, not a therapist, so I don't tell people what to do in terms of that, but it's interesting when we recognize it and how often it has come up for my clients that I've worked with. Not all, but a lot of them have run into that. Like, well, what if I make more money? I've never made more money than this person. So what happens then?
What happens, right? What if?
Let's see. What a great problem to have.
I have so many clients who have far surpassed their husbands or partners' incomes. I know I did. And that's not what's going to make or break the relationship. So here's the scary thing to look at. Okay. So the scary thing is, if you think your husband or partner is going to throw a fit, reject you, not like this, what does that say about your marriage? And that's really what women don't want to look at. Is that, oh shit, I'm in this marriage and it's only, he only loves me. It's only okay if it looks exactly like this, which is not the truth of who you are. Like, what if you are more than, like, are you not allowed to grow and become more and evolve and change? Does it always have to stay looking exactly like this for your man to love you? Right? That's what we're not comfortable looking at, because that's security, that's stability, that's certainty, but that's also giving your power to the other person to create the stability. So when my clients have looked at this and they've actually had real conversations,
right?
And husbands have been, yeah, go for it, babe. I don't know what this wild road is going to look like, but sure, let's go. And then if they're like, no, I don't want you to, you got to look at what that means. Okay. But most of the time, they want you to be happy and they want you to be successful.
I can tell that we've both been on the side of, I've encouraged people to have conversations, because that's really the first thing, because it's usually a story we're telling ourselves most of the time. And a lot of my clients are like, Amanda, we talked about it and this is what happened. And it's like, now they can move forward and it's a non-issue because they feel the support from the husband, the partner, whomever it is on the other side. And it's amazing what can happen after that. But it would have not happened without a conversation. And it's just, one of those things. Amira, I feel like we could talk for about 3 or 4 more hours on this, but I know I can't take your time and the people listening's time. So we're going to have to wrap this up. But what I like to do at the end of every podcast episode is give someone a next step. We've talked about a lot of things, and I bet there's a lot of feelings that have come up, a lot of thoughts for people. With all of this in mind, and the person that's listening that is maybe wants to make that quantum leap. Some of the numbers you've talked about have been really exciting, but they're pretty dang scared to do it. What is the next step, the one tiny step that they can take after listening to this episode today?
Do I have to choose one?
I know it's going to be really hard. You can stretch that a little, but I want them to know the first step, because that's where people get hung up is like, we just talked about a lot. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a way of wrapping it all in.
Great.
So when I have a conversation with someone, they come to me and they say they want to work with me or they want to explore working with me. They might not be sure, right? I ask them I ask them lots of questions, but it goes into 2 fundamental categories. What do you really want? And what's stopping you? And the what do you really want is the vision, right? Is we talked about that, using your imagination and really getting clear about, this is what I love that idea. And then what's stopping you, and this is where people we need to unpack a few things there. But like, is it just fear? Is it not being willing to invest in yourself? Is it belief? Is it, what is actually, is it not having a plan or a strategy? Like, what is actually stopping you? And if you can get clear on those two things, you often can get leverage over yourself in order to get the help you need. And that was the thing that I was going to share. And I know it sounds self-serving because, I work with women helping them, you work with women helping them, but I didn't do it. I didn't do this by myself. That year that I went from 138 to 700K, I worked with a mentor, right? I studied, I did the work. I really, I leaned in. I took 100% personal responsibility for my outcomes, but I got help so that I could hold that belief in the vision and move through the things that were stopping me. So that kind of hopefully wraps it up in a little.
It does. I'll wrap it up in hopefully a one sentence here. So your next step, my dear friend listening, is to not listen to another podcast. Because I know that's a really tempting thing to do. If you're driving, if you're walking, you're doing things, and it's to consume more information. Please don't consume anymore until you create what was just asked of you. What do you really want, and what is stopping you? Create that on a piece of paper, not just in your mind. Write it down, and then identify what you need in order to get that. Because to combat that, what's stopping, whatever that is, reach out to Amira. Have an accountability coach like myself, find a mentor, find a coach, find a therapist. There's all kinds of options for you, and really figure that out, because it's a hard thing to make a big change. And so to get the support you need is really important. So Amira, thank you. Please tell everyone your podcast name, where they can find you online, because I know without a shadow of a doubt, people are going to want to connect with you.
Thank you so much. So the podcast is called The Unstoppable Woman Podcast. Imagine that. And it's on all the channels. So whatever podcast service you use, we're there. Our website that has a lot of resources and shares more about my story. And you can just poke around there. We talk about the 7 shadows of success. And that can be a really useful frame for you. That website is theunstoppablewoman.com. And then you can find me on social media under Amira Alvarez or The Unstoppable Woman. And reach out. Love to connect.
I will make sure that all of the links are in the show notes. Thank you so very much for being here, Amira. And for everyone listening, be sure to give yourself permission to know what you want and grace as you go and get it. And I will talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful or inspiring, be sure to share it with someone else who could use it too. Sharing is caring, but it's also a huge boost to your accountability. Sharing this message and then talking about it will ensure that you actually take the action that was mentioned in this episode. Hello, accountability. There's nothing better than the feeling of actually following through, and I want that for you. So screenshot it, share it, and if you share it on Instagram, be sure to tag me at @TheAmandaMcKinney too. Until next time.